Is a spoiler-filled rant about Artemis by Weir. I love this novel. I genuinely loved this novel so much. It was like the Thomas Crown Affair, but set on the moon. Okay, it was absolutely incredible. It's got heists, it's got blowing shit up, it's got money. So much money is involved in this. It's got the Brazilian mafia. I don't think they're called the mafia, I'm gonna go with mafia. It's got a badass, sarcastic female character who actually knows she's a female character and, you know, is human and shit. And it is just such an incredible novel. Spoiler alert, I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I did not have very high expectations for this novel. I know that it has won so many awards, and I know it has been on the bestsellers list of everything from New York Times, Los Angeles Times. It has stayed on bestsellers lists for literally months at a time, which, considering the list is only 10 books long, is pretty impressive. So I knew objectively that this was meant to be a fantastic novel. I wasn't expecting to hate it, but I was definitely expecting to not like it. It was going to be a book that I would get maybe a quarter of the way through. I would know, okay, this isn't for me, and then I would finish it out of pure stubborn and pettiness. No, none of that happened. From the very first page, I was just hooked. Okay, like it did take me, I think 4 days to read it. Apparently life gets in the way. We had to wait for every spare moment I had was just dedicated to reading this novel. That's how good it is. If you like sci-fi, definitely read it. If you love sci-fi, you've probably already read it. If you don't like it, please do check it out, okay? You can get the first chapter is actually available online from tons of different websites and magazines and stuff like that. Just type it into Google, it will come up. Read the first chapter. If you get hooked, go out and find this book. If you don't get hooked, come back and yell at me in the comment section for tricking you. It's not a trick, I swear, it's genuinely a fantastic book. So, first of all, Jazz. What an icon. She is just realistic. I don't feel like realistic is the word I am looking for. A word similar to realistic, in the sense that it is very obvious she was written by a middle-aged white man. Not in a sexist way, just in a pretty cringy way. But despite that, she acts a lot more human than I've seen with other female characters who were written by female authors. So, you know, she's got that going for her. She's just human is the word that I'm looking for. I mean, she is flawed. She is so incredibly flawed. You guys, not a single thing in this novel would have happened if she was not a greedy ass. That's the truth, not a single thing. I mean, even when Trond told her, hey, you want to blow up some harvesters for me? She was like, the fuck, dude, no, I don't want to get deported. And he said, 1 million slugs. And her immediate response, deal. I mean, okay, to be fair, some of that greed is because she needs a fuck ton of money to pay back her father after burning his workshop to the ground. So some of her reasoning does come from a good place. It is definitely not an altruistic movement. It is something that is generous, I suppose, of her, despite the fact it was her fault in the first place. Justice, I suppose. Some of her greed does come from her sense of justice and needing to repay her father for everything that she cost him. The other part of her greed is plain, pure, simple. She wants to be a millionaire, don't we all? So because of that, because she is so very obviously flawed, and because literally nothing happens in the story that would have happened if she had not wanted money so much, she is very, very human. She is very realistic, a fantastic sense of humor, and incredibly sarcastic, incredibly wishy. She is super intelligent, which, I mean, yes, of course, that is a desirable trait to have in life as well as in any form of media. But, you know, there's also the side of, if she hadn't been so intelligent, so many things would not have been possible for her to do. So it is kind of irritating that she's, oh, just this ordinary poor working girl in the slums. with probably the smartest mind in the entire colony. So there is that. It's as much as an upside as it is a downside. As well as this, moving on from the character of Jazz, honestly all the characters in this were written super realistically, more realistically than I was expecting. There are of course quite a few coincidences, very convenient setups. I mean, you've got Bob, who is the head EVA guide of the guild. He used to be a Marine, so he's a stickler for the rules. But, you know, is he a stickler for the rules because he was a Marine? Or is he a Marine because Andy Weir needed a reason for him to be stickler for the rules? It's the same with quite a few characters. I mean, you've got Rudy, who used to be Canadian Police Force, I believe. Super, super unyielding when it comes to his brand of justice, okay? Which I do admire, and I am glad that was the case. There are so many stories where the police are, well, either the police are entirely incompetent or the police are actually pretty damn good at their jobs until it comes to the main character being the one getting in trouble. In which case the police will either let them go, or there will be a mistake or misfiled paperwork or general incompetence that has not yet existed in that police officer suddenly comes to light, very conveniently for the character to escape. That doesn't happen with this. Everything that Rudy does is 100% based on getting justice, based on upholding the law, the very few laws that Artemis has, and Jazz herself is not exempt from that. There are so many situations where it would have been so much easier if Rudy had just let her go, or had not arrested her, or had done whatever, but he didn't. Which, again, kudos for the realism. In fact, the only time that he does let her go is purely because the administrator orders him to, and she is literally the only person that he cannot refuse an order from. Which, the administrator herself, while we have mentioned her, she was an interesting woman. She is actually one of the most interesting characters that I've read in a long while, despite the fact she gets so little screen time as such. I just feel like she should have, like, if we had a backstory for her, well, I mean, we do have a backstory, but in the sense of we had an actual novel dedicated to her setting up Artemis, I would read the shit out of that. She is such a simply complex character. Like, she worked all her life to set up Artemis. And then the Brazilian mafia, the Brazilian mob, they came in, they took over the aluminum, however you pronounce it. They take over that factory, and she knows that she kind of has to let them because Artemis needs this very vital thing called oxygen. So she knows about the crime, she knows about the smuggling, she knows pretty much everything, which is, you know, pretty awesome for her to begin with. But the fact that when Jazz confronts her and says, you knew that Trond was going to be murdered, you knew that this guy was going to bring Zaffo onto the base, you knew all of these things that led to all of these system crimes, and she pulls a gun on her? Like, immediately, I'm like, oh my gosh, the administrator's a bad guy. But she's not. She literally, it's all economics to her. Economics is literally her lifeblood. Like, yes, she points a gun at Jazz, but that is only until Jazz drops her knife. The administrator lowers her gun again. It wasn't a case of, oh, finally, you've caught me. If it weren't for you meddling kids, I would have gotten away with it, blah, blah, blah. No, she literally just pulled a gun to defend herself. And then Jazz was like, okay, fair enough, and she dropped the knife, and the administrator was like, yeah, okay, chill, sit down, let me explain you a few things, kid. I just think she is such an interesting character, and she got so little page time. We need to invent a screen time word for books. But the fact that everything she did, her motives were so grey. It's very rare that we get a character who is not a good guy and not a bad guy. I mean, you've got villains, you've got heroes, anti-heroes, anti-villains, they all tick their own little boxes. but to be a completely morally grey character. Like, what the administrator did was wrong, but she did it for right reasons. Which is definitely simplifying everything that she did. But the fact that she willingly let crime, she willingly let the mafia come into her city, literally let them murder people, because in the long run, she thought, oh, this will actually help our economy pretty well. There's so much that's unknown about her, but the things we do know are so important and so crucial to her character. Where's my prequel, Andy Weir? I need to know how this incredibly badass Kenyan woman got to the position she is today. Moving on from characters. Plot structure. You guys, if you have seen literally a single one other of my video rants, you will have heard me mention plot structure, okay? I'm not going to get into this whole sci-fi technobabble version for writing. I just need you guys to know that, to me, plot structure is really important. It's obviously such a crucial part of a book. I mean, obviously without a plot there would be no actual story. But even in some books that I have loved before, Cinderella is Dead by Helen Bayron is a good example, but I had to give it 4 out of 5 stars. It lost an entire star because the plot structure was just so messy and so unbelievable and so all over the place. It just made reading the fantastic characters horrible to do. Not the case with Artemis, okay? I mean, story itself, a heist in 1/6 gravity, that alone deserves 5 out of 5 stars. That is just such an incredibly unique and fresh idea that is just, oh my gosh, such an incredible story. But the actual plot structure was done beautifully, okay? I mean, like, you start off poor person working, and then you have a little high part, you're like, oh, what's Sappho? Sappho's interesting. And then, yeah, whatever, life continues. And then, oh, you want to make 1,000,000 slugs? You're like, hell yeah. And then life kind of continues. And then, oh, you got to blow up the harvesters, life continues. Oh, you got caught, life continues. There are so many peaks to the structure. There are so many arcs. It is beautiful. The fact that every time you think it cannot get any worse, it does. And the fact that every time you think, oh, it's all gone according to plan, it's over, it's not. It is so many arcs, so many heights, so many dips, so many lows. Plot structure of this novel is amazing. It is genuinely, honestly, probably one of the best that I have ever read. Ever. Like, not recently, just in my life, in my existence. Also, speaking of plot, I feel I should add, if you are the type of person who, like myself, does not enjoy sci-fi for the simple reason of all these technical terms just weigh down the story so much, that is not the case with this. It is so fantastically done, everything is explained, everything theoretically is actually possible, which is like the major part of this. Can you even call this science fiction when everything is actually real? Science factual, it's a new genre. This book is so amazing, it invented a new genre. Everything is explained simply and quickly without dumbing things down. Like, you don't feel like an idiot for reading it. At the same time, you actually understand what's happening, and it's only like a brief line every so often. It's not page after page after page of all the science technobabble that makes you just want to skip to the next chapter. It is done brilliantly. So the fact that this novel has brilliant characters, brilliant plot structure, and brilliant language, brilliant content, it is not really a surprise that it gets 5 out of 5 stars, because it wholeheartedly deserves it. If you've made it this far in the video, congratulations. I hope you liked this book rant, review, rant. It was a rant, let's be real, this was a rant. Hope you liked the book rant. Hope you liked this video. Definitely hope you will subscribe. Every time you subscribe, a unicorn gets wings. As usual, if there are any ideas you would like me to know about for future videos, if there are any books you'd like me to read or review or stare at objectifyingly with barely concealed disgust for a 20-minute long video, let me know and I will do it. I will wholeheartedly do that for your happiness. So that was my rant on Andy Weir's Artemis. I hope I've convinced you to read it if you are on the fence. If you are not on the fence and you have read this before, then you're obviously here because you liked it too. So let me know and we can talk about this. Please do like the video. Please do subscribe. Comment below any future ideas. I update new videos every single week without fail. I will talk to you guys then.